Well, Garen, the Lions, finishing on a high before the June window. Do you think that a lot of the Lions players were then duly rewarded with Springbok call-ups? What was your sort of first impression on Alistair Coetzee's 31-man squad?
Yeah, very interesting squad. We were all waiting with bated breath to see how he was going to usher in his era after Heineke Meyer stepped aside late last year. And I think, looking at the squad as a whole, I think it's very much one picked with an eye on 2019, the Rugby World Cup then, which is just over 3 years away now. A lot of inexperienced players picked, but in certain circumstances that was just due to the fact that we've had retirements to the likes of Victor Matfield, Jean de Villiers, Brian Banner out for this Irish series, Skalkberger injured. So we've lost a lot of experience, a lot of test caps there. So he was going to have to fill those voids with players, and a lot of those vacant berths went to Lions players. If you think that Ruan Kombrink is probably going to play ahead of Brian Banner on the wing, Lionel Mapu's had a great season. He's likely to start in midfield ahead of Jean de Villiers, Faf de Klerk, sorry, at number 9. Looks like he's going to get the starting berth there ahead of Friede Prier. So a lot of those voids have been filled with Lions players, and rightly so. They've certainly been the standout South African team in Super Rugby, in Currie Cup Rugby over the last couple of seasons. And they've sort of had to wait to be rewarded. And I think they had seven players in their squad, in the Springbok squad, which is a far cry from the Warren Whiteley that we sort of had in the past. So hats off to them. They've all deserved their spots. The team on paper is a little bit short on experience. I fully expect them to lose probably more matches than they have in the past in the build-up to 2019. If you're just looking at the sort of the colour makeup of the team, Fikile Mbalula is on record as saying it needs to be the Rugby World Cup team in 2019 has to be 50% of colour. This one is just under 40%, and it's a 31-man squad. When you cut it down to 23, we're still going to lose a lot of players, and I've just got this horrible feeling that some of those 8 players that are going to have to be cut from the squad are going to be the youngsters, like maybe a Garth April, maybe like a Nick Groom, some of those, maybe even Rudy Page, one of the Stormers who got both their hookers into the squad somehow. One of them is probably going to fall away as well. So we'll have to see what happens to the final 23 when it's eventually named. Obviously, he still has to name a captain as well, which is leaving it fairly late.
Yeah.
He talked about a core group of 4 to 5 players. I'm not too sure exactly who's going to get the final nod. But hopefully he doesn't go that whole co-captain's route, which is sort of, the jury's out on that. But it'll be interesting to see in the next couple of weeks who he names as his captain, and eventually who gets the nod for that first test at Newlands on June 11.
Well, on that note, Rob, Coetzee seems to have made quite a statement with his choice of overseas-based players, or lack thereof. Many sort of touting Duane Vermeulen as a captain, and it seems not to be. So what... you said as much in your column, it really has been a bit of a clear-out of experience, and worrying but exciting.
Yes, it is. I'm not sure if we should read too much into this initial selection. I almost think there are going to be sort of 3 phases to the year for Alistair Coetzee. He's got this test series to sort of bed down a few new faces, check whether some established names still cut it. Then, of course, we go into the real deal business, if you like. With respect to the Irish series, it's the real deal, as we know, is going to be the Rugby Championship again this year, where we pit ourselves against New Zealand and Australia, the fellow sort of, other giants, if you like, of world rugby at the moment. So that is the core focus of the year. And I have a little feeling that by then you might still find that perhaps, say, a Bismarck du Plessis still forces his way back into the mix, not out of the question. I still think that he's the sort of guy who's got a little bit of an aura about him, that, for instance, a sort of a fear factor that even New Zealand might think, oh boy, they've got Bismarck back in. They would be a little bit worried about that. He's got that sort of aura about him. But I do think that he's done the right thing by keeping quite lean the number of overseas players, because it's sending a message that, hold on guys, don't go flying off for lucrative foreign contracts. If you want to play for South Africa, you need to be home-based. We've lost so many players already, and I guess that Coetzee, in conjunction with Saru, came to a very specific decision that they were going to only have, as it turned out, 3 overseas-based players come into the squad. Of those 3 players, I suspect you wouldn't have called them back for nothing. If they're going to be here, you expect they're going to play. So I suspect you'll see Duane Vermeulen play, Francois Lowe probably play, or certainly be in the match 23, and Stephen Kitzelf, the interesting choice, uncapped, only 24 years old. He almost seems to have been around for years and years, but he's still only 24, and I still think a real asset to South African rugby. And the fact that we've actually kept him from the possibility of sort of France showing some interest in his services down the line. The sooner they get a green and gold shirt over his head, the better, I think. And I have a feeling he might be, at the very least, on the bench and see some game time at Newlands on June the 11th in the first test against Ireland. I don't have any gripe with Alistair over the policy for the moment. I think keeping it to 3 foreign-based players was actually a very astute move.